co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid every Saturday, noon until 2. You could, if you're listening to us now on the radio, you know you're on 1410 AM and you're pretty close to Elgin. You can stream us on WRMN1410.com, or you could watch us on the YouTube live channel, WRMN Radio 1410. YouTube live channel. The studio number here is 847-931-1410, and our magic text number
505-926-1410.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
And as always, you could see our shows. They're either on WRMN's channel or they're on the Chief Guard of the Republic channel on YouTube. I store them all up there. How you doing, Paul?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Survived Christmas.
Very nice.
I know. It was at my sister's house, and it was pretty much just okay, you know. I don't watch football with the boys, and, you know, football kind of, I know the guys before that I did lead in are great football fans, and everything that I know about football is from listening to them. So that's Mike Napolitano, right?
That's
and
right.
His show is
On the Rise.
On the Rise with Mike Napolitano. So they lead into us, and then guys before them, if you got your fantasy football league, which I'm clueless as to how that works, you can listen to them too. So Paul, how was your Christmas?
Oh, it was great. We went to a couple of different family functions. We went to church. We got some nice gifts and everything, and you know, it was wonderful. You know.
Yeah. So we're you know,
we went to a church we usually don't go to, and they had a children's pageant. It was really cool.
Nice.
It was at 2:45, and one of the kids was like an animal. He was crawling up the aisle. It was really funny. And then after 10 o'clock, we went to see a stable with live animals at St. Fabian. So it was really cool. It was real nice.
Nice. All right, so we're talking about this week. We're talking about something pretty close to the North Pole, and the St. Nicholas, where St. Nicholas moved, after he lived in Turkey. I guess he needed to get away. He's a very, very, it's amazing how many churches are named after St. Nicholas and what an important saint he is, not only to the Roman Church but to the Orthodox Church as well. But we're talking about Greenland again, because during the week, the president named Jeff Landry to be a special envoy to Greenland. Now, he can't be an ambassador because Greenland still falls under the Kingdom of Denmark. So everyone that's screaming about democracies and everything, just remember the Kingdom of Denmark. So it's still, I mean, Greenland, the strategic importance of Greenland cannot be understated. It just cannot be. And everyone that thinks it's a big whoop-de-doo and they're laughing at it and everything, and they try to belittle the United States' influence, trying to get influence over there, they don't remember 1867 and the what was Seward's Folly under Andrew.
Seward's Folly.
Yeah. Under Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson was a Democrat.
He was an ambassador.
No, Andrew Johnson. Well, Seward was an ambassador. Andrew Johnson was the president that took over after Lincoln. And he was that still when the guy getting the second amount of votes became vice president automatically, or had that changed and Lincoln had just picked him as a running mate?
I believe you're right. It was the second amount of votes.
Yeah. So he was a Democrat, and he threw the millions of dollars at Alaska, and everyone's going, "Oh my God, you just threw this around in a frozen wasteland and everything," and everyone was absolutely wrong, absolutely 100% wrong. And Alaska actually has some very strategic influence because it controls the Bering Strait. And this is from your Magellan, right? Magellan founded the Northwest. Well, he circumvented the Northwest Passage, right?
I'm not sure on that.
It was, well, they were trying to find the passage where you didn't have to go through the Straits of Magellan or through the I'm trying to think. What's the name when you go around Argentina?
Okay, that was Johnson was the second amount. No, that wasn't. It used to be up until 1804. So the 1804 election changed that. So they ran as a ticket. Okay. So Lincoln and Johnson ran as a ticket. Now, who discovered the Northwest Passage? I'll let you know. Go ahead. Keep talking.
All right. So this is way before the Panama Canal. So you either had to go all the way around the Pacific around the Cape of Good Hope, which is South Africa. You'd have to go around Africa, or you would have to go through, and I had this written up. I probably still have it on here.
Okay, so it was Sir Robert McClure. No one technically, not a single person discovered it because it was a centuries-long quest. But Sir Robert McClure, who died in Sir Robert McClure in an expedition in 1850 to 1854 proved the existence by traversing it partly by ship and partly by sled. And then Ronald Edmondson completed the first full navigation one in another expedition in 1903 and 1906.
All right, so since then, since 1903 and 1906, people have gone around there. Of course, this is in the summer months. It's a little hard to do it in the winter months, as there really wasn't powered icebreakers back then. So, and even in the summer months, you're running a risk of if it got a little cold, of getting frozen in. But it's much shorter to go through the Northwest Passage than it is to go through the Drake Passage or the reverse. Let's say you had to go from California, and you would go around the Cape of Good Hope and then up to Europe. But if you're coming from the other side, right, then you go through the Cape of Good Hope, because you didn't want to go around the Drake Passage because it's really way too close to the Antarctic Ocean. The passage between the Atlantic and the Pacific there, and they say it's one of the most dangerous passages. It's like you're taking a big risk going through there. So that's why all of a sudden they got the Panama Canal, right? You dug the Panama Canal. That shortened your path. I mean, you cut the world in half. You cut
by months.
Halfway. And you could do that year round. The Panama Canal is year round. Then later you get the Suez Canal. And the Suez Canal is year-round. That's where you got to go through the Straits of Hormuz. Right? To get to that. Now, the thing is, the Straits of Hormuz and the whole Middle East is iffy at best, right? Anytime things can shoot off and then all that traffic gets blocked. They have one, what was that one freighter, the green something or other? It broke down in the Suez Canal. It ran on a sandbar or something. There's all sorts of theories on what actually happened, but it blocked the Suez Canal for a long time, and all that cargo was delayed, or it had to go around the Cape of Good Hope. So now, the U.S. we talked about this in one of our earliest shows. We talked about this. Because everyone was, we wanted to get the Panama Canal back. The canal zone to be totally U.S. controlled again. And people were, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. And I'm like, no. Our treaty says if we believe the canal is not being properly maintained or kept open for us because they were overcharging U.S., they were taking advantage of the U.S., that if we believed that it was in danger, that we would use military force. That's part of the treaty. That we would use military force to keep that as an open passageway, specifically for U.S. ships. Right? We got a call in. Hello?
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 Yeah.
Hello? Hey, Larry.
Am I on? Hey, how you doing?
Hey,
I
Larry.
thought question, guys, okay? And I want to say, guys, great year, and I hope that everybody realizes that Mike and Paul have done a damn good job, and I hope we keep them going, okay? And that these guys are not high-paid DJs. Maybe they are now.
We will be soon. We will be soon. We got to have positive influence. We got to have positive thoughts on that. Right.
But I thought one of the things that the U.S. could go to war at any time, it's called freedom of navigation. Isn't there a thing called, like, if that's one of the reasons we went to war with Germany in World War I, you know?
Well, the reason we fought on the British side in World War I, this is, okay, everyone's going to have different opinions on this. And you don't go to war with a trade partner, someone that you trade with, that you have. You know, the reason the Japanese went to war with us is because we ceased trade with them, all right? And they said, oh, we got nothing to lose now. So the British had effectively blockaded the Germans in. So we had no trade with Germany, zero trade with Germany, but we had trade with Great Britain.
Right.
So we had more, we probably had, the British were quasi-backing the Confederacy. We had fought a war against them, the War of 1812. And before that, we had our War of Liberation, right? A Revolutionary War. So when had we fought the Germans, other than Hessians that were British mercenaries for the British, all right, the Hessians, and a lot of them, when they got captured, came over to the side of the American forces. So we had a very large German population. Why exactly did we go in on the British? And you could talk about the Zimmerman thing, and you could talk about the unrestricted warfare on our trade, but we weren't trading with the Germans. If we were trading with the Germans wouldn't have sunk our ships. The British would have.
Paul,
freedom of navigation is now codified in the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Seas from 1982. So it's relatively, it's been a principle before that, and it was only mostly applied to the Mediterranean and that area and the Caribbean. But it's 1982. It's been codified.
Okay. Okay, guys. Thanks. You guys do a great job.
Getting to your point, I always watch 3 movies at Christmas time. Well, 4 actually, maybe. I watch Snoopy, and then I watch a movie called Holiday Affair because it involves a train set that a kid gets in an unusual way. And then I watch The Man Who Saved Christmas, which is a relatively new movie, and it's Jason Alexander, but he plays A.C. Gilbert. Gilbert was the guy that invented the Gilbert toy company, the scientific toys and everything. But as it starts out, it's the early 1900s or something like that. And Germany created a lot of model trains, the Markland Company, and they did a lot of stuff. Yes. And there was an embargo on it starting around World War I, so I keep, every time you mention about our trading partner, and I keep thinking, well, that's why Lionel picked it up and Gilbert picked it up because of World War I, and although Lionel was around since 1900 and stuff like that, but it's an interesting concept how even international conflicts have a direct impact on American society and traditions in America.
Well, what's the thing in the Lusitania that kind of just was a matter of time before we entered on the side of the on the Brits, wasn't it?
Well, yeah,
it was that, but that was there had been attacks on passenger ships, and Americans had been killed before that. But it was the Lusitania, which could be considered the prime mover, but other people would say there was behind the scenes on that prior to that, and there was there's a lot of interesting things about that war. It was fought to a stalemate basically, and then the theory was American involvement was inevitable because the concept of bringing fresh troops back in there, because those warring nations were basically at a standstill, and nobody wanted that. So then the United States got involved in it, and as I think you pointed out prior to this, Wilson campaigned on not getting us in the war.
Oh yeah, no, he was
that was it.
That's how he got elected.
In 1916.
All right, he got elected because he wanted to be an isolationist. He says we shouldn't involve ourselves in the European problems. We should.
Right, and then a year later,
then he throws us into the war.
Right.
I got a revisionist viewpoint of why we got into World War I. Ready for this?
All right, Larry.
Because the guy who was killed in Sarajevo, okay,
Archduke Ferdinand.
Yes, he was killed. His own uncle didn't even show up for the funeral. I think his father was the guy who committed suicide in Meyerling. I gotta go look that up. Back in 1883, friends. Maybe
that's
I'm wrong.
That's the year my grandfather was born, 1883.
Okay. Well, anyways, the guy who kind of kept Europe in one piece was King Edward VII, because he was cousins with the Kaiser. He was cousins with.
Didn't he abdicate?
No, he died of natural causes. Okay. I think in 1911.
Edward was the abdicator. Edward abdicated.
Edward VIII was the abdicator. Well, anyways, it's my. I wouldn't say conspiracy theory, but I think that the war was over oil, because remember, what made your country was the dreadnoughts were coal burning. Now they were all oil converting, and whoever controlled the oil controlled the seas. So I mean, it's simple. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, no one even knew who he was, but because a man who few people had heard of was killed in a city that fewer people who heard of.
The big lead up to that one. All right, the big lead up to that. There's everyone. All right, so World War I, they say, is just an extension of the Franco-Prussian War. All right, that they're trying. The French are trying to get back grounds that they lost during the Franco-Prussian War. All this stuff. It's all up there. But if you really want to read about it, read Barbara Tuchman, The Guns of August.
Oh, I read that, yeah.
Oh, my God. And it leads it up to it. And people think of World War I as, like Paul said, a stalemate war. The first 30 days were as blitzkrieg as you can get.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Right? The first 30 days were as blitzkrieg as you get in that war. But, yeah, all right, so that, the rite of passage of the sea, all right, for trade, all right, so we're going to go a little circle on this. Look. I get to be a waving monkey again. All the people looking at me doing my radio show. Hi. Tune into 1410 and you can hear me talk.
It was the Von Schlieffen, remember? He was a German field marshal who died just before the war. He said that the way to win the war was to not attack the French head on, but go through Belgium and Holland, go through Luxembourg, go through those, do a right wheel into the countries.
Yeah, because those were neutral countries, and they didn't expect they wanted one thing. All right, there's no such thing as a neutral. There's no such thing as a neutral country. By remaining out of the conflict, you are taking one side over the other. There's it's like a neutron. Well, a neutron has a neutral charge. No, it doesn't. It has a slightly negative charge.
Well, it's like Turkey kept out of World War II because they lost everything in World War I.
Yeah. All right. So, Matt, I want to segue. Look at this dude here, man. He looks like a dark battle droid. Look at him. Look, I'm pointing right here. Wait, no, this guy, the microphone. Look at the screen. Doesn't he look like a dark battle droid?
He does, yeah. I was like, wait, what?
All right, guys.
All right, so
what, I'm going to hang. You guys done a great job. I'm going to hang up and listen. But thanks, guys, and have a great year. And thanks for everything, Paul and Mike. You're the best. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, Larry. Happy New Year.
So one, we will absolutely control the Panama Canal. If we go into hostilities with the country, we will shut down the Panama Canal to that country. That country will no longer have free passage through the Panama Canal. All right? Any of their merchant ships flagged out of that country won't go through the Panama Canal if we're open to hostilities. Now, like I said, the Suez Canal is iffy. You know, if we're going to go into open hostilities, I guarantee you that the whole world is going to start falling apart because Big Brother is occupied with other things. So all the little guys are going to go stick their hands in whatever cookie jars they think they deserve while we're not watching because we're focused on other things. You understand what I'm saying, Paul?
I do.
Like, you know, all right. So if they can't go through the Drake Passage, it's too dangerous. All right. They can't go through the Panama Canal because we shut it down to them. Making an assumption that if hostilities begin, the Middle East is not going to be safe either. That shuts down the Suez Canal. So that leaves a massively long passage. The longer you travel, and the more at risk you are around the Cape of Good Hope. There are other routes that are there are the Northeast Passage up above Murmansk through the Bering Strait. And what do we have at the Bering Strait? We got Alaska there. Right. But the same thing goes, you go the other direction above Canada, right? You could either go above Russia through the Northeast Passage, or you go through the Northwest Passage above Canada and then come down. And once you're coming down off the Northwest Passage, you got to go by Greenland. Greenland's right there. Greenland covers that whole passage other than Canada. And, you know, no offense to our Canadian friends, but I don't think they're anytime soon they're going to be involved, you know, put their necks at risk to involve themselves in our business. Right? But if you take and you control one of those ports there along the west coast of Greenland, not the east coast of Greenland, west coast of Greenland, you could shut down that whole passage, right? Either via missiles, drones, naval blockade through that. So it's important to have those things. So it's also important for us to have this Northwest Passage open for other people, for trade and for security. You know, you get a couple missile submarines up there. They break through the ice. They launch missiles from the Arctic Circle down onto us above Canada. You know, we have ways of knocking those down, but we want to control that. So we're coming up on our first break. We'll talk about this more when we get back. Chief Guard of the Republic Veterans Radio Shout-Out Show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid here on 1410 AM WRMN out of Elgin, the Fox River Valley Media Network. And let me give a shout-out to my boys every Tuesday, 9 o'clock to whenever. Usually we're out of there by 10:30. We give we have guest speakers for the veterans over at the Dunkin' Donuts Veterans over on just east of Harlem on Dempster, the Dunkin' Donuts there in Niles. So that starts every Tuesday at, here we go, 739 West Dempster. And every Tuesday at 9 a.m. You get there a little earlier, talk there. It's good information for veterans. Give a shout out to them all the time. And my favorite sandwich spot over there, the Blue Box Cafe, which is Doctor Who themed. And I just met a guy in there, Don. He's a new employee. He says he's got to get out of the house and do something. He's a retired middle school teacher, taught history. Good guy, but he was also a 19 Echo in the Army Reserve. So he joined 86 to 90. Now I'm feeling old because, I joined in 82. All right, so, okay, so, hey, Paul, back in 1946, after World War II, what happened about Greenland? people don't know this, but and they don't say it because it's a big joke with our current president, making fun of him for wanting to buy Greenland or whatever. But there was a Democrat president in 1946 that offered the Kingdom of Denmark, all right, of Denmark, $100 million for Greenland. And that's World War II 40s money.
So Harry Truman
offered to buy Greenland from Denmark. Why do you think he would do that?
For strategic reasons, for the
strategic importance,
Navy and Air Force for shipping.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like Seward's Folly. Greenland isn't just one big floating ice block, all right? It's not. It's a continent covered in ice. Underneath that continent, and we all know the Pangea.
Greenland's ice and Iceland's land. We got that. Yeah.
Pangea, right? The great continent. The great continent that was broken up by the tectonic plates, and everything's constantly gliding away from each other. Well, under that time, things were a lot warmer, so you had a continent there. You had things there. So you don't know how much coal is buried under Greenland. You don't know how much oil and natural gas is under there. You don't know. It had volcanic activity, which implies that there's going to be diamonds. We don't know if there's likely uranium in there. There's likely a lot of rare earth metals. And one thing we rely on is China for a lot of rare earth metals that are being mined. And the thing about mining them there, you got to go through a mile, 2 miles worth of ice to get to the land. You got to really, this is a lot of ice. But as opposed to the 1800s and when Eric the Red was there in like 1200 or 900 or something, the year 900, we have modern mining ability. We can drill through that ice, make a nice ice cave, and keep going down until we hit the earth, and keep digging out and drilling until we hit pay dirt, gold, silver, but oil, natural gas. There's a lot to be done there. Can Denmark afford to put industry and infrastructure and a massive investment to get that rolling, to create an economy there?
Maybe if they sell a lot more sardines.
Yeah, they don't. Right now, Denmark, as a country, the Kingdom of Denmark, the gross national product of Greenland is 30%, 20% welfare from Denmark. Denmark subsidizes them to the tune of $12,000 per person, per capita. The per capita people make about $58,000. 12,000 of that is straight from Denmark. So they're spending $500 to $600 million a year to keep Greenland afloat, so to speak. They only have 50,000 people in Greenland, 50,000. But it's a rough life. It's a very rough life. You got a limited outdoor season, and then everything else is indoor. You got a limited time when you could fish. You got a limited time when you could travel. You got a limited time. There's farming there. They have sheep. They have cow. They have a beef industry. But, it's a very limited time. It's a very rough life. So it takes a special type of person that wants to live there. All right? Like the Inuits.
Everything I know about Greenland, I know about through a YouTube channel called Q's Greenland.
Okay.
And it's a woman. She's an engineer, and she did a video blog twice now with, multiple series. And, she'd show you about Greenland. And Greenland is got populations in certain pockets, but all on the coast, but there's no roads connecting them. So the travel's either by sea or it's air. And you are
A lot
totally
of times
correct.
it's helicopters, because
Correct.
they don't
You
have a
are
landing strip.
right. You are correct that there's only approximately 50,000 people there. And they just got recently they've got a new international airport at one of their cities, but they are subsidized a very large amount from Denmark, but they're semi-autonomous, okay? And they don't like that either. They don't want to be part of Denmark, and from what I've gathered, they don't want to be part of like United States either. But there's no way that they could do it, and that one of the things they do is they imported reindeer, and then they use that, you know, for hunting, and they have a population of that, and they, you know, they do fishing, and you're right, they do have a large Inuit population. In fact, a lot of the people in Greenland are traditionally Inuit, and it's really kind of interesting because it presents a unique set of problems all the way around, you know.
Well, the unique set, okay, so how many troops do you think a container cargo ship could carry if all they were doing was carrying troops?
Maybe 2,000.
2,000, one ship, let's just say. And that's fully equipped, and I'd say maybe a year or two of food, medicals, and supplies, right? And ammunition.
Right.
So I take 2,000 people and I land 2,000 troops, and boom, one container ship, I offload them there and I take over their port. Which I could do, right?
Mm.
Now, instead of having a untrained, non-military civilian population there, I have a highly trained, highly disciplined, highly armed 2,000 military dropping off that one container ship into that port. What's it going to take to get them out of there now?
Way more than 2,000.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to take a large and seaborne. I'm talking about people just docking that container ship and walking off. But if you're contesting that landing, you know, landing craft coming in and those seas, brutal. You go in the water, you're dead. You go in the water, you're dead. Right? 30 seconds, you're gone. Right? That's how cold it is. So if you're doing a beach landing on that stuff, you better get to the beach, right? And doing an airdrop, you know, you have to have an open field and you have to have total control of the skies to come in. So there are ways, but that's scary. But they're not just going to, it wouldn't just need to be done with one container ship, right? These are, let's say, our competitors, China, right? So now I put together 100,000 troops, a couple container ships or whatever, maybe have them seize an airfield, and right after I seize that one airfield, right after I seize that, I bring in flights of my troops, just landing like they were commercial aircraft, right? Just land there, take it over. Now, as the United States is focused, because we're the only ones that are going to do anything. Think that Denmark's army and navy is going to take care of business? No. You know what NATO's going to say? Well, Greenland's autonomous. They're not really part of NATO. And they're all going to ignore it. Who's the only one that's going to stand up and liberate that now? And it's going to have to. Yeah. We're going to have to. Right? It's us. And it's going to cost a lot of lives. A lot. A lot of treasure, a lot of lives, a lot of stuff, you know. And what happens what happens after we're all engaged on our east coast far up north?
There'll be something going on in the southern
Formosa.
hemisphere, and there'll be something
Formosa.
going on in
They'll
the
go after
Far East.
Taiwan. They'll go after Taiwan.
Right.
Formosa. There's a and we'll be too busy. Yeah, we could fight two-front war, maybe. Right? But Formosa. So if this isn't true, why did the Chinese have like 7 icebreakers, 5 of which are in the Arctic right now? 5. That's more than we have. If they're not interested in that Northwest Passage. If they're not prepared. Oh, it's scientific research. Okay, the last science project that came out of China was COVID. And before that, gunpowder. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. COVID, heroin, gunpowder. I got the order right, Paul?
Yeah.
It's like, what else has come out of there? Cheap plastic junk, cheaply manufactured, cheap steel, cheap everything, human misery.
Timu.
Organs,
Timu.
cheap
Timu.
organs, prisoner organs, criminal organs. Right. So once Taiwan goes, there's a lot of our chips. We're going to have to start, pick up the slack on that. That's going to take up some of our industrial might, actually technological industrial might. But once they seize that chip, now the Chinese are making more chips of their own. So yes, Greenland is very important. Paying attention to the Arctic and the Northwest Passage is very important. And anyone that giggles and laughs about the intent to protect Greenland, right, from our adversaries, all right, from our competitors, it's like a land grab, right? If you want to build a bigger house, and your neighbor 2 doors down from you wants to build a bigger house, right? And the property in between you goes up for sale and you can't split that tax number, someone's going to get it. There's going to be a bidding war on that property, right?
Right.
So right now there's a bidding war on Greenland, right? We're the only ones that could protect it. It's someone disagrees. Okay, do you know who else could protect Greenland?
Russia?
Yes. But we kind of put a split on that. Russia's closer to China than they are to us right now. Actually, Russia borders China.
Correct.
Right?
And the U.S. through Alaska.
Not land to land.
No, but it's like
the Bering Strait.
door.
Yes, the Bering Strait. Very close. All right. And that's concerning. That's concerning because if the Chinese control the Northwest Passage through one, I don't think the Canadians care, right? Because it's mostly Canada up there. And the Russians control the Northeast Passage, then the only way is the Suez Canal, the Cape of Good Hope, and the Panama Canal. Once China doesn't have to worry about being denied access to the Panama Canal, they can use the Northwest Passage enough. And here's the thing. You build stockpiles, all right, in certain areas. So I make a product and I want to sell in Europe. Well, the first thing I do is I build up a huge stockpile in Greenland so that when the Northwest Passage closes over the winter, I can still constantly move this stuff in to Europe because I'm only going from Greenland to Great Britain, France, Norway, all right, into the Baltic or down through the Mediterranean. I don't have to worry about that. I could keep going through. Now, if I set up military air bases there, I'm a complete threat to everyone around me. It's wiser for us to occupy or to encourage them to join with us. Hey, when did Alaska and Hawaii become states?
Both of them in the year 1959.
59. That's interesting. 50. Okay. And they were territories of the United States long before that.
They were the last two states. Before that, the last state before that was the state of Arizona.
Yeah.
1912.
So Greenland became a Danish province in 1953. A province, right? And they received home rule in 1979, all right? And they have autonomy. Now, this is key from what we're talking about before. For us to accept, for us to bring something into our fold, right? Something into the United States, that we couldn't just like seize part of Mexico and say this is now the United States. Before, maybe, but not under our current laws, right? That area would have to have autonomy. That area would have to request that the United States take them in. Then we would have to vote on whether to bring them into the United States. Now, I don't have the best, sharpest memory, but it's in the Constitution. We talked about this before. Right? So Greenland does have autonomy. All right? Have they asked to come into the United States? Well, I think that's why we got a special envoy there now.
They recently had a vote, and they said, I believe that they did not want to do it. That was like 9 months ago or a year ago, I think. And I think that's I think that it's Trump is trying to get ahead of the game with this on any kind of next vote or anything like that.
Yes, because what did the people of Greenland, what was publicized to them? How were they psyoped one way or another? Everyone likes using that psyop thing, but there's an influence on it. You know, do they receive both sides of the argument? Or did they only receive one side? How is their press working? How is the Danish press working? How is the Kingdom of Denmark giving them information? How is the BBC giving them information? How are our U.S. people giving them information? If you're getting U.S. from the East Coast broadcast news, right, or CNN, or any of the other big legacy networks out there, and you're getting it in Greenland, you're only seeing. You're not only seeing, you're seeing 99% of one view. That's influencing you, right? Hey, it's an election, right? But that's what happens. If the press goes out there and intentionally influences and intentionally weights the information to one side, they are no longer the press. They are a political entity. They are weighting the information to one side. They should be a fair and balanced. Well, here's the pros and here's the cons of each side. And if they do due diligence and they said, listen, we can't even find any pros about this. That's how bad it is. You know, that's how bad it is. Like drinking gasoline. We cannot find pros to drinking gasoline. It's bad. It's really bad. We're going to give you both sides of you can drink. It's a liquid, but it's really bad. It's going to hurt you. I do not condone drinking petroleum products. Not at all. But you see what I'm talking about, Paul, right?
Right.
That there's positives and negatives, but how is that influence? Now, all right, if you're currently, who did he assign? The lady from Arizona. She ran for Senate. She ran for governor, then she ran for Senate.
Carrie
Lake. So she is the head of Radio Free America, right?
Right.
The Voice of America. What was the Voice of America pushing out a year ago? I mean, it's PSYOPs. It's U.S. PSYOPs. It's supposed to be, right? But who do you think's sitting in those positions saying what's going to say over the air? And
political people.
Yeah, but which way do you think they lean?
It depends on who's in office.
Well, not all of them, because they don't just change the regime at Voice of America every 4 years or 4 to 8 years, right? There's guys that have been working there, the editors that have been working there forever. They cross regimes. But it seems like you should be apolitical. If you're in that, okay, boss, what do you want me to say? Well, I don't really agree with it, but you're the boss. Out it goes, right? With the same fervor as if I had agreed with it, because I'm working for the regime. I'm working for United States policymakers. You get where I'm going with this?
I do.
And that they should be, but they don't. We even have U.S. military officers, which ticks me off when the senior officers go out there, and even in retirement. I mean, I could be considered a senior officer. I was a senior field grade in the Army. Senior field grade. Same as a colonel. Of course, I'm a warrant officer. It's a little different, right? But I was rated as a senior field grade officer, all right? I'm going to keep my mouth shut on certain things, all right? Other things, that's fine. But when I come out and I'm in the service, I'm retired. They call me back whenever, whatever, but I'm retired. But when you're in the service and you say things, you should be ashamed of yourself sometimes. Not you, Paul, but the senior officers that say things that don't go along with the policy of the commander-in-chief. Part of the Republic Radio Show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid, and we're talking today about we're gonna get robbed. I could tell. No, he's looking at the radio. Maybe I should bring this guy in and interview him. He looks clean enough, but he's waiting for his wife. Something they're gonna just stand there. Anyways, okay. So I got distracted. All right. So we're talking about Greenland and the Northwest Passage, and really the technical, the tactical, strategic, tactical. If you're talking like Navy, it's very tactical because it's right there. Importance of Greenland. So
Greenland, by the way, had their election on March the 11th.
Right. In the March the 11th, like I said, they said so far that no, they don't want it. I don't think they were bribed enough.
They don't want
Hey,
it. Well,
Denmark gives them 500 million. I mean,
yeah,
500 million in the United States right now is like that's a third of a lottery winning. We could offer them a billion. We could offer.
Maybe we should just give them lottery tickets.
Yeah, join us and get the free lottery and everything.
Yeah,
we can make it a gambling. I bet you if
it could be like the Monte Carlo of the North. We should bill it as that. You know what I'm saying?
You think of the casinos you could build up there.
Oh yeah,
casino under ice,
entertainment venue, and the outdoor concerts with the lasers under the aurora of the Northern Lights.
Borealis, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could carve out the world's largest igloo casino.
We could.
It's the ice is 2 miles thick. 2 miles thick. So you could carve like have a mile high dome made of nothing but ice, right? Which is kind of self-insulating. You get some geothermals in there, and the ice on the inside melts, right, and forms more ice, and it forms an insulating layer, and you have the geothermals heating the whole thing up. And that's what I'm talking about. We have the technology, the industrial might, the industrial will, right, to start exploiting the natural resources under the ice in Greenland. I don't think any other country is close enough and has the ability to do that. We would be able to do it, our industrial might. The Chinese would love to do it, but we would definitely contest them coming in and trying to set up bases there. But one thing is, even though they have autonomy under the Kingdom of Denmark, when everyone says democracy and everything, I'm just going to go Kingdom of Denmark. The only foreign military base in Denmark or its provinces is it
used to be the Thule, Greenland, United States Air Base, but it's been renamed recently.
Yeah, the Diddelvik Space Base. So the Thule was near Diddelvik, and when President Trump created the Space Force, right, they took over a lot of the Air Force's missions and a couple of the Air Force bases. So they have a very cold base up in Diddelvik, Greenland, and then they have a very warm base down in Florida. So you go either or, right? But that's the only military base. No other foreign country has one. They don't have any. The only time a foreign military comes is by invitation, and it's not like a permanent thing. We have that base, and that's probably because why not? Back in 1945, who was going to say no? And I think we had that base during the war. We had bases set up.
It acted as a weather station, I believe.
Greenland and Iceland is weather stations. And also, we weren't supposed to be, quote, in Iceland. That was supposed to be a neutral, right? But we had combat aircraft there. Anti-submarine, anti-ship. It's supposed to be weather, yeah, but they're conducting patrols, looking for stuff. So no one's calling in and saying we shouldn't have Greenland. I'm not saying.
As we're talking here, something triggered something, and Larry probably would understand this better than I would. Especially when you're talking about this, what would be frightening if they had commercial submarine traffic over that area. Now, it would be very expensive. Area. Well, the Northwest Passage.
Yeah, through the Northwest Passage, commercial submarine.
Yeah, they could actually, with not too much change, do extensive commercial submarine shipping in that area, which they would never surface. You know what I'm saying?
Submarines are highly inefficient.
I understand, but the Japanese tried it, and so did the Germans to a lesser extent. In World War II, they were able to bring that 163 Comet from Germany to Japan.
Yeah, ME-263.
Yeah, in a
or it was a Hinkle. HE-263. It was a Hinkle.
No, Emmy 163.
Emmy was the 262. Was the dual jet engine.
Yeah, no, this was the
Interceptor.
rocket plane. They used it as a kamikaze a couple times.
Yeah.
Well, but it's frightening to think of. If you had a boat as big as a nuclear missile launcher, you could fit some good cargo in there. things that, banned items and stuff like that. So that's something I was thinking about. It could be really strange,
Yeah, but they had, after World War One, they had some surplus submarines that were purchased and were used to carry hooch.
Liquor.
Yep. banned liquor from Canada to the United States. So
President Kennedy's father was involved in that, Joe.
No.
I think I heard.
Yeah.
I heard things. It's possible.
It is possible, but at least politics, dynasties and everything. The dudes went to war, and not like war correspondents in Vietnam. They were like a PT boat. That's brutal. That was short-lived. Those guys were short-lived. They had a very low life expectancy.
He got chopped off.
A B-17. Yeah, they got cut in half by a Japanese destroyer.
And his brother got blown up in a remote control bombing raid. He was going to bail out, and they were going to remote control the bomber and the bomber blew up on him. All
right, so got to give them their props. The kids, their props there. All right.
Yeah.
But the if it all boils down to, the press is a political element rather than the press is information. How you spin everything, spin doctors. Make people think that left is right and right is left and up is down and down is up and the sky is green and the moon is made of cheese. And when you do that, you could get them to believe like nearly anything. But the people that are spinning this, they really don't. They don't think of the secondary and tertiary actions of their spin.
Well, you know what the problem is, and some guy, because I asked something once on a question on the internet. Problem is the media doesn't do their job. They don't do the who, what, where, when, why, how, and they only do what was handed to them. They don't dig under the surface. They don't ask, who benefits what, where, when, and show me how a system's organized. I'll show you who benefits what, where, when, why, and how. And they don't do that. They want to be the first one with the story, and they don't care, what story it is, just so they got it.
So, Paul, after World War II, how much of Lend-Lease was paid back?
Well, we're still getting some of it, but virtually none of it, really.
Yeah. All right. So it cost us more than everyone else. Not
right.
so much in lives. Yeah, in lives. The only one that seized U.S. territory were the Japanese, and they seized the territory of the Philippines, which we, set aside.
They also made inroads into some of the archipelagos up in Alaska.
Well, yeah, the Aleutian Islands, Kishka and Attu, specifically, right? And what they did to the Inuits there, that's a war crime.
If I ever get another dog, it might be a husky, and I might name him Attu. I always thought about that.
Those are probably the dogs that are only more hyper than a Malinois.
Right.
If you could cross a husky and a Malinois, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
You could power the world. Put it on a treadmill.
That's right.
And oh man, I lost my. All right, so here's the kicker, right? Is that Denmark knows that if anything happens to Greenland, they don't have to do anything. We'll take care of it without even being asked. And they'll go, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. And then after they'll go, okay, you saved us, now get out. You know? Oh, how much did it cost you? Well, better than costing us. You know, we're a small country. We can't afford that. Get out. You know, so they tell us we go to war for oil, right? Really? Trillions of dollars of oil in Afghanistan. Trillions of dollars that we spent there. You know, in Iraq. What do we get a benefit out of it? A good feeling, a warm feeling that we're trying to, you know, bring peace and love and, quote, democracy to the world by putting the most corrupt people in charge? Because I think the most corrupt people love democracy because it's easier to bribe people to vote for you.
Right.
So if you could bribe 51%, you win your democracy. Then you stop paying them because you're in power, right? But they know. Denmark knows, right? Canada knows. They all know. We don't have to worry about it. Now, what happens if all of a sudden the Chinese drop into the autonomous province of Greenland and takes over their major ports and everything? And we do nothing. Oh, Denmark will come out and say, hey, that's NATO. You got to come help. Right? But the rest of Europe will say, nah, that's Greenland. That's not NATO. You know, it's like, honestly, that's the problem. So where do we get the benefit out of them knowing that we're protecting them? Denmark isn't sending us $500 million for being there, just for being there. Just for being there. I bet you a significant part of their gross national product, the gross domestic product, is the fact that we're paying to lease that base up there. I don't know, you know, what's in the Pentagon's budget for leasing the Diddlefix space base? How much is that funding the government in Greenland? That's what gets me. We do stuff like build the Panama Canal. We got some benefit out of it. You know, get rid of Norwega. All right? Now get out. We built the canal and you're overcharging us to use it, and it took a threat of us seizing the canal back for them to say, oh, did we mismanage this? Is that what we put on the receipt? Oh, we'll just move that decimal point over again. I'm sorry, it's just a flaw. You know, our calculators are messed up. Sorry that we overcharged you for 20 years. You know, really?
We have a comment.
Okay, got a comment?
It's on the text line.
Text line. Dennis, oh, nice. My brother-in-law was stationed in Greenland during the Vietnam War in the Air Force. Cleveland, Dennis. Yeah, that would have been a Dole Air Force Base. I bet you he had some stories of the cold. Yeah, but I tell you what, he was probably taking care of the Air Force. The difference between the Army and the Air Force is the Air Force likes its people. They treat the people pretty well. They had the best mess halls, man. They had great housing for their people and everything. But, you know, they put all their money into providing you good living conditions, a decent job, decent training, all right? Where the Army puts all their money into paying you bonuses so you don't leave because you don't want to be treated terribly for another 3 years. So they pay you enough money so that you stay. Whereas if they gave you better housing, treated you a little better, they wouldn't have to pay all those bonuses. But that's arguments for another time. But yeah, it's what the only thing I think that would solve the problem, and this is we have to really put it's almost been like being occupying power. You know, Denmark, right? the Germans, there wasn't almost not a shot fired when the Germans went through. They talked about Poland falling in 30 days. Well, it took them 4 weeks to drive the French and the British off the coast, right? Those were two countries fighting them. Poland held out longer than France held out, right? Then you get Denmark, which, just got overrun completely, right? And then they kept their own government in place till 1943. And then the Germans said, well, we can't let this happen anymore. We're going to take over more of your production and everything, the means of production. And that's when their government walked out. But World War II, the estimates of the loss of Danes, they call them Danes, right? 6,000.
I just found something out. And I'm really sad about it. There used to be, we used to have a much larger presence in Greenland with the DEW line, but the DEW line was deactivated in 1993. And it's automated, and most of it's been withdrawn back to Canada. So we actually had radar outposts in Greenland in that area, and we had much more of a presence up there.
And the radar is because they're so far north, you'll have a little bit more warning when those missiles come over the pole. Because you can't see, okay, not going to apologize to the flat earthers. It's round, all right? It's round. And you can't see you got to get up really tall to see over that pole. And then you're not going to really see over it. You're just going to see over into space. You're not going to see around, all right? You can put a telescope and you're not going to see around, all right? It's not flat. You're not going to see, you can't sit in New York at the top of the tallest building in New York, look out the telescope and see London. You can't. You can't get that tall to see over the curvature of the Earth. All right? But if you're closer to the other side of the pole there, you'll at least have more of a warning. It's, pull out a book on trigonometry and you'll see how that works. Right? So there are parts of Canada that are further north than Greenland. I'm pretty sure. I could look at my phone. There may be an island or two. But then that's Canada again, all right?
Our cousins to the north.
So if we act like an occupying power and we say Greenland is so important to our national security, we're not going to invade it, so to speak, but we are going to put forces there to protect it. And you know what the great thing about that is, all right? So 1999, go back to Panama here, right? Because Panama we had the canal. That's us, right? The canal. The canal was very important, so we said we were going to protect it. So what did we have down there to protect the canal? We had the 173rd Airborne Brigade. We had a couple other units. I don't know all of them, right? We had engineers. We had MPs. We had a field artillery. We had the Airborne Brigade there. We had Marines, right? All right, we had the Howard Air Force Base. We had Clark Base there. All right. In 1999, because boo-hoo-hoo, sometime in the 70s, under former President Jimmy Carter, all right? We talked about this. It's like going full circle. There was a student, a Che Guevara, Cuban-inspired communist protest by the students of Panama against the American military being in Panama, right? They had protests in the street, and 5 U.S. servicemen were killed. And a couple of Panamanian, I think a dozen Panamanian students got killed, right? Because we were protecting the canal zone. That's what we said we would do. We built it. We're going to protect it. So the boo-hoo-hoo that the American military is killing civilians, blah, blah, blah. Jimmy Carter says, oh, we're going to pull out by 1999. 1999, they're all screaming for us to pull out. Oh, free Panama, free Panama. Then the trucks start leaving. And all the old ladies freaked out and started laying in front of the trucks. Don't leave, don't leave. You know why? The jobs went with us. The money went with us. The security went with us. Everything left with us. The Panamanians weren't going to replace it. All right. So when we get back, I'm going to tell you how that applies to what we can do, which would seem really not kind of American-esque, or it really kind of American-esque too. It's a good way for us to protect our interests without taking over another country or province of another country. Autonomous province. So with your co-hosts Paul Burvitt and Mike Tuman every Saturday noon until 2. I can't wait for the 4th of July because that's on a Saturday. And that's gonna be the show of shows. I'm definitely gonna be here. You know, they might be doing a parade and everything. Maybe we'll live broadcast from the parade. That'll be pretty cool. All right. That's 6 months from now, over 6 months from now. But I'm looking forward to it. I should be around for that. The phone call-in number here is 847-931-1410. Our text is 505-926-1410. Of course, you can stream from WRMN1410.com, or you could stream it on the YouTube live channel. If you could see me now with my, this is like the negative image, so I gotta be careful. With my buddy, the dark. Like, this is the Darth Vader version of a battle droid from Star Wars. This is the Darth Vader of the battle droids, right there. That's what I'm going. Vader droid. It's Vader droid. He's one of our co-hosts now. I'm going to get him a name tag. Vader droid. So I just, anyways, yeah, you could see all of our old shows. And the I'm going to have to dial back. I'm going to go back and I'm going to find the Panama thing that we did. The Panama and Greenland thing we did was probably at the beginning of January or February last year, like a year ago, because that's when it initially came out. And double check everything that I've been saying here, so I'm not wishy-washy on what I've been doing. But the one thing we could do is, I guess we can press Denmark. Well, I guess two things. We could press Denmark to say, hey, listen, you're not spending enough of your NATO money. Remember, they're supposed to have like 3% of their gross domestic product, and they're supposed to have 3% of that money, and they're supposed to spend it on their own defense. I mean, they got, I believe, 9 frigates, and that's less than, I think, 100,000 tonnage total. It's like one of our aircraft carriers, one, right? But that's the warships that they have is frigates. They don't even have an icebreaker. Denmark doesn't have an icebreaker. So, Greenland, where's your icebreaker, right? The Russians have them. We have some. We're behind the times, and we got to split our icebreakers between the Northwest Passage and Antarctica. But we're still behind the times. The Chinese are making better and better. I didn't look up Japan. Japan's probably got some icebreakers in there. But I know Russia has them, right? But what is Denmark bringing to the table in defense of Greenland? And like I said, if you were to push Greenland, like, okay, Greenland, what are you going to do, if someone invades you and the United States says they're not going to help or just ignores it? What are you going to do? Well, you're going to get out. There might be a few Inuits who are very good at the field, working the field, in the field, and they probably very good shots, hunters and everything, and they kind of blend in. They know where to hide and everything, but there's total population of 50,000. So what is the total number? 60% are Inuit. So I'll cut that down. Who's got the rifles? You know, they're designed for hunting. They're not designed for fighting, because you don't really bring an M16 to kill a polar bear. You probably have to empty the clip into it, the magazine. I'm sorry, magazine into the polar bear to stop it. You know, you want to have something that's going to put that bear down one time. So it'll be a heavier rifle when it carrying so much. But the Finns did a great job, didn't they, Paul?
Oh yeah,
We were just talking about the Finns before. They fought pretty hard with basically hunting rifles.
Right.
You know, so depends on what you do. But what are they going to do? You put that fear of God into them. You counter PSYOP. You counter PSYOP, and you say, hey, you need us to protect you. You need us to protect you. You don't want us? Pep. The trouble is, everyone knows we have to. So they get it for free. They get it for free. And all we're asking for is like, hey, give us some of the benefit of our goodwill, of our overwatch, of our strength, that we maintain a huge military. We maintain the most technologically advanced military, the most highly trained, technologically advanced Navy, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, Space Force, our Coast Guard, right? Our Coast Guard versus the Danish Navy. Just our Coast Guard, not even our Navy. Just our Coast Guard versus Danish Navy. Who's going to win?
Our Coast Guard.
Oh, we'll cream them. We'll cream them. That'll be it. You're gone. All right. So if we put military bases, small contingents, right, at every major deep port city there, deep port city that you get a cargo ship into, as a deterrent. So that when you try to unload those 2,000 forces, you have a contested landing. Right? You don't dock that ship until we're sure it's not filled with it's not filled with a couple thousand Chi-Coms. Is that too out of reality?
No.
To believe that they could do that? And you were talking about submarines.
Yeah.
And when, submarine carry a 40-man special operations detachment. You know the type of damage they could do to a town that only has like 1,500 people in it? The infrastructure, knock out the power, knock out the water, knock out the gas, take over the port. Just taking over the port should be easy. I'm sure they don't have that many security. Like, it's cold outside. No one's out there. Except for those Chinese guys, So, and so we would have, right? We could, everything causes me anxiety, but this causes me a lot of anxiety, because if I could think how to do it, sometimes when I'm writing a novel, right, Paul?
Yes.
I think of a bad thing that could be done by bad people. And I'm like, oh, this is totally plausible. I could do that. I could. Would I?
No.
I fight every day not to. Yes, you're right. No. I don't let other Mike out. Other Mike stays locked up. All right. I discuss things with them from time to time. All right. So take that anxiety away. Make sure that Greenland, all right, as the strategic area it is for the Northwest Passage and for free commerce around there, is protected from other powers that might be encroaching on it. How does a cat hunt, Paul?
Through stealth.
Stealth. It doesn't outrun its prey. Maybe a cheetah does, but before a cheetah starts to run, right, it gets as close as possible. Quietly, silently, inch by inch, right? gets a little closer until it's pounce area. Well, that's what's happening up on the Northwest Passage, inch by inch. Oh, we're just scientists. We're just scientists. We're just scientists. Sooner or later, you got this whole row of scientific research vessels going from Shanghai, right? Going from Shanghai. Shanghai is a port city, right? That's where it comes from, to be Shanghai.
Yes.
From Shanghai to to New York through the Northwest Passage, a whole bunch of ships, like a bridge of ships. And like, where did that all come from? A little at a time. Quite, through, if no one's looking at these guys, okay, they're scientific research vessels. How do you mask a submarine? From sonar.
Oh, a scientific submarine.
No, from sonar.
Oh.
If you're going to sonar.
Run silently.
What? No, okay.
Run silent.
So when you have active sonar and you're pinging, right? And you have radar, right?
Yeah.
GPR, ground penetrating radar, which you could also use in the water, right?
Right.
The way you shield yourself is you get behind something. Well, the ocean isn't flat. It's not all like a beach. There are underwater mountain ranges. There's ridges, right? If you can map those in the Arctic Ocean, map the underwater mountain ranges, then you'll have a map where you could shield yourself from active sonar or active radar. So now you could do exactly what you said with the submarines. You could bring the submarines through. You could set your ballistic missile submarines as close to the ports as possible, and all of a sudden, the Navy goes, where the heck did these things come from? You watch the movies Hunt for Red October, right? That's hilarious. How a Lithuanian got control of the Russians' most powerful submarine is beyond me. Well, I'll tell you why. Because the guy can write, but he doesn't know anything about history, and he doesn't know anything about the ethnic tension between those two groups. Where you would never let an ethnic Lithuanian power one of those vessels, even though it's supposedly one of your republics in your Soviet, right? So there's more of a purpose for that, for the scientific, how dense and how cold water affects sonar, active sonar. I mean, have we used, I'm sure they used active sonar in the North Sea against the German U-boats, and they used active sonar in the up near Alaska by the
Bering
by
Sea.
the Aleutian Islands. I don't think the Japanese got as far to the Bering Sea, but by the Aleutian Islands, I'm sure they used active sonar. But the water's a lot colder up. No, water only gets so cold, right, Paul?
Right. And then
Well, salt water gets a little colder, right? Then it turns to ice.
Correct.
But the ice isn't. Here's the funny thing, right? Ice isn't salt water.
That's correct.
It's fresh water. So you could take chunks of ice, it's fresh water. Right? So I could see the Chinese doing somewhat scientific research, but I guarantee you it's all military related. It's not, listen, we found out that in these waters up here, these cold waters, that it's really good for krill and for plankton. And we can make a lot of plankton. We could plankton farm up here like you wouldn't believe. And we could condense that into human-grade protein to feed the starving hordes in Ethiopia. You think that makes sense?
No.
Now, if they're doing it to feed
Their troops.
to feed their troops or to feed their own people. You know, you want to set up a protein farm somewhere at sea. Are you going to set it up in the filthy waters off that the Yellow River empties into in the Sea of China or the Sea of Japan? Or anywhere
No.
near the Philippines
No.
or India or Malaysia or these people, Indonesia, where the garbage is, great thing. I love environmentalism, right? I love the environment. I love the environment. It ticks me off to see garbage in the streets. Pick it up. Throw it out. That's why we have garbage cans. That's why we have landfills, right? To at least concentrate, put it in one place. Landfills it could be done better. Recycling, love it, right? I recycle. My daughter says it all goes to the same place. I'm like, I have to have faith. Even though the city was caught. Remember the blue bags?
Yes.
They were
all with the same thing.
They all went, you buy the blue bags, they pay people pick up the blue bags, and it was all going into the landfill. Who went to prison over that?
Nobody.
Okay. All right. So, oh my God, my train of thought just went off the rails.
So sonar works better in warm water than cold water because density affects the return of the signal, and cold water is more dense.
All right. So, all right. So up north, because there's not a lot of people and there's not a lot of boat traffic and there's not a lot of people throwing their garbage into the river or throwing untreated sewage into the river and then it washes down into the ocean, right? Or throwing untreated chemical waste down into the river, right? And it's going into the ocean. There's not a lot of that. So the water up north is probably a lot more pure, cleaner, less mercury, right? Less mercury in the fish and the krill and everything else. So yeah, I could see that, for you people, go up there and set up this huge aquatic krill farm, plankton farm to make protein, right? Rather than doing, what do they call it? Factory created meat or 3D printed meat?
Lab created meat.
Oh my, that's so disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
To me,
3D printed meat.
What they do, they're taking stem cells, and they're like, here's a stem cell of muscle tissue. It's orange. We'll put it here. Here's a stem cell of fat tissue. It's white. We'll put it here. And then they marble it up to make it look like a steak. But it doesn't have the sinew. They do the same thing with yeast farms, right? They take yeast and they compress it into a protein patty because yeast is smaller than bacteria, but it's living organism. It's made of proteins, right? Boom. You can eat it. You just got to make it like palatable. The texture. They tried to make soybean burgers. The texture was just all off. It was like, so yeah, there's probably some legitimate thing there. I don't see them doing it. They've been up there for how long now? I haven't seen one krill patty come out of there to market. I can't believe, like I said, what were the last scientific discoveries to come out of China? COVID, heroin, and gunpowder. There you go. Yeah. So, yeah, people are going to be very... I wish people were angry at me and call it being angry. You got any finishing words, Paul?
No, I think that the world is an ever-changing place, but in some ways it hasn't changed at all. I mean, you mentioned, the guns of August, which is great. They've always said unless you remember history, you're doomed to repeat it. and we don't seem to remember it anymore. And there's also said in the Bible, the more things change, the more they stay the same, and there's nothing new under the sun. So everything we have now, we've had before. We just don't realize it because we don't know it.
Yeah, it's all there. But again, when they make fun of the Greenland thing, they don't realize that one of their heroes, Harry S. Truman, wanted to buy Greenland first. So what was wrong about? I want them to come out and say what was so wrong about that. I wanted to say how Harry S. Truman was.
You won't get an answer on that.
Yeah, was so wrong, right? Was so wrong, right? And set precedents. Oh, there's nothing there, or it costs too much, and everything. And then say, hey, what about Alaska? Everyone thought the same thing, but it's a great place, It's got wilderness. It's got endless. It has like 1% of it has been exploited.
Right.
God knows what's under all those glaciers.
Correct.
Can we exploit? Well, here's the trouble, right? Is it worth the headaches that the press is going to give you? Because they're not going to be on your side unless the person that owns the press is highly invested in opportunities to exploit natural resources in Alaska. Anytime you try to exploit a natural resource in the United States, all right, you're going to have to fight the press, fight everyone to get it done. No matter how good it is for the country, no matter how good the country needs it, there's going to be some rich guy's point of view. He's going to pay. They own the press. They're going to tell the press what to say. And then 51% of the population is going to bobblehead and go, oh, yeah, I saw it on TV. CNN says, why would they, my favorite thing, why would they say it if it wasn't true? Because no one's going to tell them they're lying, or they're not going to report that someone told them that they were lying. They're going to say, look at this guy, he doesn't believe us. That's a spin, right?
Right.
So I'm not admitting to lying, and I'm turning it on this guy. I didn't tell him. I didn't say that's not true. He's the one lying, right? I'm just saying he doesn't believe me. He's a goof. You all believe me. You're smart people, even though I'm lying through my teeth, right? That's the way you psyop these people. So, yeah, no, I really hope something happens with this Greenland. My anxiety of waking up one morning and finding out that a deep water port in Greenland is now occupied by 5,000 Chinese regulars, and some Chinese special operations, and they now have, a couple ballistic submarines in port there, saying, "What are you going to do?" And they got, some missile destroyers coming through the Northwest Passage using their icebreakers. Now, they didn't attack us. Is NATO going to invoke it? Is NATO going to go to war against China?
Who knows?
I highly doubt it. And the same thing could happen with Russia in Greenland, but I doubt the Russians are going to do that. Why shake up the world? But who's more? The Russians, what do the Russians have that the Chinese don't have? This is the difference, right? Every natural resource in China has been exploited and continues to be exploited. They got 1.5 billion people. They're constantly mining, digging. They have ruined their land to the point where they've killed all the bees, where now they have trees and they have people with Q-tips going up and cross-pollinating all the flowers there. That's their job because they have 1.5 billion people. They could do it. Russia has.
Did you know that they built a dam that has so much water that it actually had an impact on the rotation of the Earth for a brief time period?
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And they're the ones paying the politicians to scream at us climate change.
Right.
Oh, you can.
Have a great week.
Okay. Yep.
Happy
See
New
you
Year.
next year.
Next year.
Next year, 2026. 250
Next year
years.
in Greenland. Next year in Greenland.
Next
Mike.
year, Greenland. If I win the lottery, we're taking a trip there
All right.
in the summer.